In the summer of 2006, you met with Prime Minister Harper at Harrington Lake. Did you, through Elmer MacKay, solicit a letter from Mr. Schreiber for that meeting?
Of course not.
Did you discuss the wireless spectrum issue with the Prime Minister at that time or at any other time?
I think the Prime Minister has already responded in the House of Commons to that suggestion.
I'm asking
the answer, of course, is in the negative.
Mr. Mulroney, this whole thing, you admit, is an error. And I suggest to you what Canadians
No, I don't admit
asking.
the whole thing is an error. I admit that my decision
to accept the money is an error.
Was an error, yes, sir.
To accept in cash, and Canadians are asking that question.
That's
It has been reported that you had a discussion with Minister Maxime Bernier about the wireless spectrum issue, and that during that discussion you reportedly asked the minister to meet with Pierre-Carl Pellado of Québécois.
Order. Order. Okay, I'm just asking for quiet so I can acknowledge you, Mr. Tilson. Okay, on a point of order, Mr. Tilson, if you could give me the nature of the item and then before...
The nature of the point of order is that this is the biggest fishing trip I've ever seen and has absolutely nothing to do with the mandate of these proceedings. I mean, we're going off talking about things that have absolutely nothing to do with the mandate that you read to the committee before us. And Mr. Rodriguez, who comes in here, you know, is a Johnny-come-lately with questions that have nothing to do with these proceedings, is completely out of order.
Okay, thank you.
On the point of order.
Sorry. Now, what I'd like... The point of order is that the matter is not relevant to the... And I would like you, at this point, to address the member's point of order. Can you please explain, without getting into too much detail, why this question you believe is relevant and germane to the matter before us?
Avec plaisir, Monsieur le Président. Cependant, auparavant, je voudrais dire à Monsieur Tilson qu'il peut faire le même point d'ordre avec respect.
Rodriguez, please, directly to the question I asked you.
Deux points en réponse à sa question. Premièrement, c'est dans le mandat, je me permets d'y référer, et en particulier le traitement des allégations par le gouvernement actuel et les gouvernements précédents, y compris la circulation de la correspondance pertinente au bureau du Conseil privé et au cabinet du Premier ministre, de manière à déterminer s'il y a eu violation des codes d'éthique et de déontologie de la part des titulaires de charges publiques. Premier point. Deuxième point, M. Schreiber a mentionné à plusieurs reprises qu'il a demandé à M. Mulroney d'intervenir en sa faveur auprès du gouvernement de M. Harper. Il est donc utile, même nécessaire, M. le Président, pour le comité, de savoir si M. Mulroney avait les contacts et l'influence nécessaires auprès du gouvernement de M. Harper, tel que mentionné par M. Schreiber.
Okay. On the same point of order, I think I had Mr. Murphy and Mr. Del Mastro. Mr. Murphy,
it is
please.
precisely the point that Mr. Mulroney, or Mr. Harper forbade members of his government to contact Mr. Mulroney. It also, Mr. Chair, goes to the core of any parliamentary hearing or any testimony, and that is credibility. We have knowledge that Mr. Mulroney did meet and speak. He will say yes or no. It's crucial to his credibility, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Mr. Del Mastro, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, we've been speaking for a while that we were afraid that these meetings, these hearings could descend into a bit of a partisan witch hunt. And this is clearly not relevant. The issue before this committee is pertaining to Mr. Schreiber, his extradition, the Airbus settlement. Everybody knows this. It is known to the committee. And I would extend to Mr. Rodriguez that he has not been here for very much of it, any of it as a matter of fact. And it is relevant, Mr. Chair, because, okay, so his attendance isn't relevant. So let me make this point, that in this case, everybody knows that the only inference to the current PMO is whether or not they interfered in extradition proceedings. We have heard numerous testimony that that is not the case, and their actions dictate that they have not, and that is the only way that it could at all be relevant. What his question is simply not relevant to the witness's testimony here today.
Okay. Now, colleagues, we have had this discussion on a number of occasions, and the members will know the members will know in, let me turn mine down my volume, will know that we have in there, in addition to the settlement issue, the Airbus settlement issue, allegations made by any party coming before us, testimony, new evidence, and we have found already contradictions. For instance, that Mr. Schreiber has testified that the monies given to Mr. Mulroney were not to do with Airbus, but were rather to do with Bearhead. And it starts to change the dynamic and the understanding of our hearings. It also, in terms of having the other evidence that has come out, has broadened the complexity and the details here. We did specifically, I believe it was Mr. Wallace, amended the original motion that was before the committee to include the concept of present or past governments and how those allegations would trade. So, in view of that, I understand that there may be, it may ultimately turn out not to be critical or relevant in terms of our recommendations, etc. But I would believe that Mr. Rodriguez has raised an item which is on the border, but I believe, and he believes in the argument, that the matter is relevant in a general way to our motion. I would rule the question in order. Could you please repeat the question for the witness, and we'll allow the witness to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mulroney, again, it has been reported that you had a discussion with the Minister Maxime Bernier about the wireless spectrum issue. During that discussion, you reportedly asked the Minister to meet with Pierre-Carl Pelado of Québécois, and he agreed. The Minister has not publicly denied these facts. Can you confirm that these discussions took place?
I think I can tell you that Mr. Pierre-Carl Pelado, who is one of the most successful and influential people in the province of Quebec and Montreal, whose company controls the largest media empire in Canada, knows Maxime Bernier, Minister Bernier, a lot better than me. He doesn't need me, Pierre-Carl Pelado doesn't need me for an introduction to Maxime Bernier or anybody else.
Donc, vous n'avez pas parlé à M. Bernier à ce sujet.
Moi, je n'ai fait aucune présentation à qui que ce soit dans ce domaine-là.
Donc, je comprends, vous n'avez pas parlé, en tout respect, c'est ce que je comprends, vous n'avez pas parlé à M. Bernier à ce sujet.
Voilà.
OK, bien. Monsieur...
Mr. Rodriguez, your time has run out.